All right, good morning, everyone. It is 10 o'clock. Welcome to the rescheduled Intro and Basics of Copywriting 101. For those of you who tried to join me a couple weeks ago, I apologize for the technical difficulties. I think we've got them sorted out today. We will see. Drop me a comment if you can't hear me or seem to be having any other issues, but I think we are good to go. Um, give everyone just another minute to join and get going this morning. Okay, good morning, everyone. Let's try this again. Again, for those of you who tried to join me on the first go round, I apologize for the technical issues that caused this to be rescheduled, but I think we have them all sorted out now. So, that said, let's get rolling. Um, You may be wondering why I am presenting this. Let me tell you a little bit about me. I'm Jen. I'm a baker, I'm a writer, and I am actually one of the OGs in the Sugar Cookie Marketing Group. Um, this is actually my first Facebook Live, so thanks in advance for your patience and your grace because, like I said, the technical difficulties got me last time, but I think we have it figured out now. I'm in beautiful Cuyahoga Falls, Ohio. Don't worry, I won't make you spell that. But big shout out to my other Northeast Ohio cookie friends. I've been the owner and chief cookie officer of Jen's Cookie Crafts since late 2019, so right before the pandemic. I bake a wide variety of custom cookies, everything from my famous chocolate chip cookies to things like margarita lime, Reese's stuffed peanut butter cookies, you name it. If you can think of it, I can try and put it in cookie form. That's one of my favorite things to do is come up with fun flavors. Another fun fact about me and my cookies, I very, very rarely do royal icing, and I specialize instead in buttercream ice cutouts. So, the reason why I'm here to talk about copywriting, I've been doing it for over 30 years. I started my career as a journalist, and I did that for about 10 years. Then I moved into public relations and marketing. In the 15 years I spent in that chapter of my career, I've written it all: print, radio, TV ads, website copy, video scripts, social media posts, training materials, press releases, media pitches, annual reports, point of sale pieces, billboards. The list goes on and on and on. A couple years ago, I did leave the corporate world. Not only was that to allow me to follow my dream of building a custom cookie business, but now I balance my cookie work with my work as a freelance writer. My clients range from Fortune 500 cookies, local restaurants, international food brands, other solopreneurs, and national not for profit agencies. But the fun thing they all have in common, most of them relate in some way to food. You could say that's kind of a common thread through everything I do today. So, something I hear a lot in the group, people say, "Oh, I hate writing," or "I never know what to say." And that really makes me sad because at the end of the day, all we're doing is telling our stories, and we have so much to say. Another thing that makes me really sad is when I see cookiers post their beautiful creations, just gorgeous, but with copy that's boring. Here are some cookies I made for little Johnny's birthday. Okay, cool. It doesn't do your work justice. So good copy matters. Why? A picture's worth 1,000 words, and we all know how important those photos are. But a picture alone cannot possibly communicate everything a prospective customer needs to know. Good copy shares information. For example, when you're announcing a pre-sale, what's included, the cost, the pickup time and date, all that kind of thing. Good copy also helps customers envision and understand why they need what you're selling. Good copy can engage the senses. It can make you imagine how that cookie smells when it comes out of the oven or how it tastes when you experience that chocolate on your tongue. Good copy can also evoke feelings. It can give you that warm, fuzzy feeling of your family gathered around the fire or the celebration when someone enjoys a cookie on their birthday. In short, all of that together, good copy tells a story. And the best copy is a story that's centered around that customer. So, the number one key to effective copywriting, and if you take nothing else away from me today, this is it. The number one key to effective copywriting: know your audience. Again, repeat after me from the comfort of your home: know your audience. But let's talk about what that really means. You may know that the twins have put together this really helpful tool, the Client Avatar Worksheet. If you don't know about it, you need to search the group, download it, fill it out. And if you've done it in the past, actually, go and revisit it from time to time. It really is helpful. What this does is help you identify who you're selling to. It's a mix of demographic information like age, relationship status, gender, whether they have children, where they live, their income, all of that kind of thing. It also prompts you to think about what matters to them. What's their home life like? Are they busy? Is it a household where all the adults are working? Are they homeschooling? It'll also ask you what their interests are. And based on all of that other information, you'll have to put yourself in their shoes and think about what their pain points are. Is it price? Is it time? Is it something else altogether? So why go through all of this? The idea is to narrow down who you're most likely to buy from you. And that's important because once you know who you're talking to or writing for, it will be so much easier to craft effective communications. You could try to sell to and write for everyone who eats cookies. Everyone loves cookies. But as we've all experienced, if you're on an Oreo budget, and there's no shame in that, but if you're on an Oreo budget, you're not going to be comfortable paying for custom cookies. It's just a recipe for frustration all the way around for you, for them. And that's not what we're about. Cookies are supposed to make everyone feel good. This is all an idea that's been covered in many, many times in the group posts and in the podcast before. And yes, everyone, there is a podcast. But it's really, really important. So I really want to drive this point home. If you don't know who your audience is and what matters to them, it's going to be really, really hard to write copy that connects with them. So again, that is my number one tip. It's time to tune into WIIFM, WIFM. That stands for What's in It for Me. Not what's in it for me being the baker, but putting on your customer hat and thinking about what matters to your customer. Your customer is asking, what's in it for me? Great, you bake custom cookies, so what's in it for me? And that's exactly what you need to try to communicate in your copy. As tempting as it is to write about what we know and what we're passionate about, and that's probably baking and decorating cookies, it's really important to write from an about them perspective. It's not really about me and what I want to say, or at least not at first it isn't. It's about what they want to hear. What do they need to hear to become a part of your story? What are their problems? Think about what they've got on their mind. Think about how you can help them. Share how you can solve their problems. Figure out what their needs and wants are, and then share how you satisfy them. For example, I don't have little kids at home anymore, but I know, because I remember, they make a mess when they're decorating cookies. It's just a fact of life. So when I sell DIY kits, I include a cheapo plastic tablecloth, one of the ones you get from the dollar store, for easy cleanup. But you better believe I mention that little extra in every single post about my DIY kits. And to be very honest, I mention it before I ever talk about how soft and delicious my cookies are. I mention it before I talk about how good my homemade buttercream tastes. Their problem is they don't want a mess. I'm trying to solve that problem and overcome that objection to buying my DIY kit before they even have a chance to complete that thought. It sounds a little strange, but when you step back and really, really think about it, you're not selling cookies. Let that sink in. You're selling cookies, I know, but But what you're communicating in your copy, you're not selling cookies. You're selling time. You're selling memories. You're selling fun, nostalgia, a chance to impress their guest, become the talk of the neighborhood. The list goes on, and all of these motivations are different, and all of these things are probably going to be a little different for each one of us as bakers and each one of our customer bases, and even the particular item or service we're offering with each post. But at the end of the day, what we're selling them is not really baked goods. That's the vehicle. We're selling them on the benefits of what we can offer them, and the baked goods are just how we get there. So here's an example from a real life post that I made recently. My idea was to sell gourmet assorted cookie boxes that can be shipped. And I'm going to target the parents of kids in college. So I'm going to position these boxes of cookies as care packages. I timed this post so it was about a week before kids left for school, really tapping into that and all of that anticipation that those families getting ready to send their kids to school or back to school are feeling. And as you read in the post, I'm literally telling my audience how they will feel. Imagine yourselves as the hero of this story. Imagine their surprise and excitement when they open that unexpected box of baked with love cookies. Imagine themselves as the hero of this story when their kid gets that surprise cookie delivery after a week or two on campus. If you look at the post, you'll see there's really not a lot of information about the cookies themselves. It's more about painting that picture that your customer wants to be a part of, that they can identify with. Another example of how this is done just absolutely masterfully is on QVC. I don't know how many of you watch, but if you ever get the chance, tune into their most popular kitchen show, In the Kitchen with David. Their host, David Venable, this guy here, he is an absolute master at getting inside their customers' heads. Forgive the goofy pictures, but he is a really expressive guy. He's warm, he's relatable, and he makes it seem like you cannot possibly live without that particular kitchen gadget or gourmet gift that he's showcasing at the moment. He does talk about the product themselves and their quality, but most of the time he's creating a narrative where you, the viewer, are the star. To give you my favorite example, it's when they sell food that comes in gift sets, like 6 different gourmet candy apples. When you think about it, however good that product is, who really needs 6 gourmet candy apples at one time? Maybe 1 or 2 at the very most. But with that mindset, you're not going to give an expensive 6-pack much consideration at all. But when David walks you through it, he reminds you that they make great gifts. And don't you want to treat your sister or your hairdresser, your kid's bus driver, your neighbor, your dog walker? Before you know it, you remember that you too have all of these people in your lives, and wouldn't it feel amazing to share a little candy apple love with them and absolutely brighten their day, all for the crazy low price of $12 per apple? You don't just buy one set, you walk away with 2 sets. I'm not even going to get into how well they use FOMO to move product. That's another masterclass unto itself. But David is a really good example of painting that picture, writing that story where you become a part of it. Of course, connecting with your customer and their needs works best when you know yourself too. You have to be genuine, and you have to be really clear about who you are and what you offer if you're going to make that connection. What are your strengths and your most popular items? What do you do better than anyone else in your market? This can be both products and services like delivery, timely communication. And finally, what are your values? How do you run your business? All of these things matter because people want to make a personal connection. This is a personal business, and people really like to know that they have something in common with you. We've heard it a lot throughout our lives, but at the end of the day, you have to be yourself. At the same time, being yourself, you have to market yourself. And if you're an extrovert, putting yourself out there is very natural, not a problem. You're wondering why I'm even covering this. But if you're an introvert like me, it feels really uncomfortable sometimes. And sometimes you may need to turn up the volume a little bit. Won't it sound fake? It can if you're trying to be someone you're not and you go too far. But think of it this way: if your audience is expecting to connect with somebody who's at, say, a level 8, and you're naturally a 4, pretty low key, try nudging yourself up to be a 5 or a 6. Still who you are, still not somebody you're not, but just somebody who's a little bit more upfront, a little bit more out there, a little bit more extroverted. It's good to be personal, and I encourage you to be as personal as you feel comfortable being. It's okay to be a little silly, a little goofy, or a little awkward if that's who you are. Just look at David from QVC. I'm a total awkward nerd, and I admit that. And, know me, that's who I am. At the end of the day, it's about being real. But I will give you a word of caution about oversharing. We all have problems and we all have really tough days. But you want your customers to identify with you and not pity you or be turned off by what you have to say. So exude confidence, exude your expertise, and share that you're human too. For each of us, that looks a little bit different. To use an extreme example, if you had rats in the kitchen, I don't think it's a good idea to share that your exterminator just isn't getting the job done and you're at your wits' end cleaning up rat droppings. Definitely don't overshare that. But I do think it's okay to say, oh, we've been trying like crazy to get back into the back to school routine the past couple weeks, and I'm feeling frazzled and tired, and I just really need that extra little coffee today. You don't have to be an open book, and in fact, you probably shouldn't share every last little thing going on in your life or your family's life. But remember that most people who are looking to become to become customers of your small business are doing so because they believe in supporting an actual local person. And part of that is offering that personal touch, sharing a small window into your life. Again, it's not making the post, it's not making the story about you, but it's making it relatable. It's making you somebody that your customers can relate to. Another thing I would advise: don't forget to express gratitude to your customers. They like to feel important and valued and really good about supporting somebody local such as yourself. You don't have to put it in every post, but it is a nice message to work in somewhat regularly. So now that we understand a little bit more about our customers, we're clear about what we can offer them. Now it's time to get into the nitty-gritty on writing engaging copy. Some ways to connect. It's important to have a warm, friendly tone. Warm, friendly, conversational, approachable. It's always good, and tone really does matter. Use appropriate humor, and the key word is appropriate. Like so many things, this has to be specific to your audience, not necessarily who you are. I Again, your sense of humor can be whatever it is. You can, love the dirtiest jokes in the world, but if you're not 100% sure that that's going to fly with your audience, stick to the jokes that they'll appreciate. Humor is good, but it has to be appropriate. Again, appropriate cultural references, ones that resonate with your audience, are always a good idea. This can be things that are current, things going on in pop culture today, or current events, although again, a word of caution: really, really tread carefully with anything that could go political unless you are specifically marketing to, you are very clear on who your audience and you know what their views are. But again, I would caution you to steer very, very carefully there. But when it comes to those cultural references, things from the past are always good. The power of nostalgia is so strong. I'm a Gen Xer, and my fellow Gen Xers love references to the 80s and 90s. Those were our glory days. So when I am marketing something to them, that always seems to hit. I'll share an example of that later. Holidays, big and small, always a good idea. Obviously, the big ones, Christmas, Halloween, Valentine's Day, they give you plenty of opportunities to connect, and you can do that. You can hit that message many, many times over the days and weeks preceding those holidays. I would also encourage you to look for those little holidays, kind of the silly ones, or sometimes we call them the made up ones, but things like National Chocolate Chip Cookie Day or National Healthcare Workers Day. Usually there's a way to connect your cookies to those days and those messages. I do have a resource that I'll share to help you uncover what some of those are. And they're great when you are staring at the blank page and you just need some inspiration for a post. Sometimes that can be a great idea starter for you. Trends. Stay on top of trends, again, the ones that matter to your audience. Not just trends in the cookie world. We are very, very in tune with everything that's going on in the cookie world, and we know what the trends are. But beyond that, that's where your customers are. So finding those trends in the real world, so to speak, that you can capitalize on are always good too. Whether that's the Little Miss meme that was going around recently or a TikTok dance, you might be really surprised what can be worked into a cookie related post with some creativity. Finally, get personal. When you do respond and engage with your customers, with people who are seeing your posts, try to give them more than a generic like or thank you. And sometimes that's all you have the bandwidth for, all you can do, and that's okay. But when you have the opportunity, ask them a question. People like to be seen and understood. Or take notes about them, or if you know something a little bit about them because they're past customers. Mention something about their family, their hobby, their lives, their favorite type of cookie, and work that in if it doesn't reveal too much of their personal info. For example, if Susie customer comments on a post you made about some unicorn cookies, you can reply that you'd love to make some for her daughter's next birthday, assuming you know and remember she has a daughter that's around peak unicorn age. Or let's say you post about margarita cookies and Jane customer comments that they look really great. Then you can reply and say, they're just as good as Pancho and Lefty's, but in cookie form, or whatever your favorite local place is. Help them feel seen. Help them understand that you have some commonality and you're part of your local community and that you have a relationship beyond cookies. Finally, posts really need a call to action. That's something at the end that encourages them to take some action. At the end of the day, we want that action to be buy my cookies, but your call to action should not be, hey, buy my cookies. It's important to get a little bit more creative than that. There's this graphic that goes around, you see it every couple of months, it pops up, and it's very helpful, I think, because Facebook tends to limit the reach of posts where it sees salesy words. Things like for sale, order now, buy this. All of those things, I am convinced, and I know there's a lot of discussion over it, that Facebook can recognize those words in the algorithm, and it will, limit the reach of those posts to try to encourage you to pay to get those posts to reach more people. I don't know if that's ever been confirmed, but that certainly does seem to be the experience. So you really have to get creative with that call to action. Instead of saying buy it, it can be something more creative like snag it, or hurry, or don't miss this one. And again, look for this graphic. It's a great starting point, and truly it's a good launching point for some of those more creative call to actions. One of my favorites, I'll say, reach out and reserve your spot on my calendar rather than book now. And it is a little bit more wordy, but it does seem to get around that hardcore, very direct sales language. I will say also it's important to create a sense of urgency, and especially on things like flash sales or if your calendar is booking, you want to create that sense of FOMO. But I do think there's a line to tread carefully. I've done this before, and it's quite honestly backfired. I you know, have made several posts like that. And, later I'll have customers bring up to me in conversation, oh, I would have ordered from you for Halloween, but I kept seeing your posts that you were almost booked or only had one spot left. So I figured I couldn't get it. I didn't even reach out. In reality, that was maybe a little exaggeration on my part to try to create that sense of FOMO. And here I ended up missing out on what would have been a sale because of it. So, again, it depends totally on your customer base and sort of the tone and the rhythm for how those things go. In my case, I tried very carefully with that FOMO thing because I guess I have a lot of sort of passive people who see that and they're like, oh, well, I guess I shouldn't even try when the idea is exactly the opposite. So just be careful with that. And then finally, when it comes to copy, and this is one I absolutely struggle with personally, and you'll see it as I share some more examples. But this is a really important one. In general, try to keep your copy as short as you can. You know how it is. People are scrolling through their feeds. If you don't capture their attention quickly, if you don't say what you need to say quickly, then that's it. Um, you have to grab them. You have to grab them quickly because attention spans are really short. Good use of emojis can help keep their attention. It can break up the copy and it can give the people who are skimming some hints as to what they're saying and hopefully draw you in a little bit more again. But to help guard against the scrollers and don't who click the read more on those long posts, front load your copy. Have a strong hook to get their attention right away. Say what you need to say, and then as the post goes on, you can expand a little bit more into the details and stuff like that. That way, at least if people are skimming, you have a chance. So, how do you put the fun in copy? It doesn't have to be a chore writing copy, and there are a lot of tools and resources out there that can really help stimulate some of those ideas and help you just get a little bit more, just have a little more fun with it, basically. There are a lot of ways to generate both ideas and then some fun and engaging words and phrases. When I'm trying to find an idea of what to write, these are some of my go tos. As I mentioned before, National Day Calendar. It's nationaldaycalendar.com. I refer to that probably once a week. It's wonderful if you are coming up on a time and you just don't know what to post and you feel like you're out of ideas. This is a great resource for those obscure holidays. Every day of the year has several of these holidays, and especially if you have a big bank of work, you can look at that for ideas and say, oh, it's National Peanut Butter Day. And if you have either peanut butter cookies or maybe you have a peanut butter and jelly toast cookie or whatever it is, you might have something that you can match up with that and share some of your old work. Or at the same time, if you're just building your portfolio, what you can do is use this calendar, look ahead, look a month or two out, and make a cookie or two that will fit some of these fun themes and ideas. It's a great way to practice your skills, and then it's also a way to build up some content that you will have to share later. Another one I really like is song lyrics, movie quotes, and things that may relate in some way to your cookies. Google is a great way to verify some of these. I know that sometimes the lyrics I have running through my head that jump into my mind are not always 100% correct. So, it's Google it and verify it so you don't end up with one of those funny, mistaken, misheard lyrics, but it is always a fun way to bring in some references. I love puns and plays on words. Again, Google is a great tool to help you find some of these if you come up blank. Rhyming is wonderful. Our brain loves to rhyme, and it can be a lot of fun as a writer to try to figure out what to write and how to make them come to life. I would encourage you to try rhyming just as a challenge for yourself. It can be a lot of fun. Alliteration. That's where you use a lot of words that start with the same letter and sound. Crunchy cookies can consistently crush your cravings. It has a rhythm to it. Your brain likes to hear it and likes to read it. So again, it can be a fun challenge to put those together. In a similar vein, parallel construction is great. That would be something like, I came, I saw, I conquered. Our brains love those patterns, and using a series of 3 similar statements can be really, really satisfying. And then finally, find some of those superficially controversial topics to ask about that are related to your cookies. How do you feel about coconut? Oatmeal raisin, yay or nay? Who is the best and worst Disney princess? All of those kinds of things. Anything that will generate some kind of debate. Again, I caution you to be careful with how controversial those topics actually are, but if you can start a discussion about what someone's favorite candy bar is, then go for it. So for some real life examples, these are all actual posts that I've written and shared with my audience. They are, you'll see that for me, writing copy is very easy, and my pictures are not always as good as my copy. That's something that I'm working on, but you'll also see that this copy is very, very long. And again, I cautioned you against that. But despite all that, despite, some of the iffy photography and the long copy, these posts still performed well because something in the copy resonated with people. So first, this is a post that ties back to that idea of movie and pop culture references that hit your audience. Star Wars in this case. This is also something I posted on May 4th, Star Wars Day. So you'll see that I tied this all together in a way to introduce a new black cocoa cookie that I was workshopping. I actually do talk more about the actual cookie in this post than I do in a lot of my copy, because I don't know a lot about Star Wars, but I knew enough to have a hook that a fan would recognize. Next, another set of that nostalgia and pop culture references, as I mentioned, late 80s, early 90s worked great with my crowd. This was a set of cookies that I made with that theme, and you'll see that the copy reflects a lot of those catchphrases and movie quotes that a lot of people from that era will recognize and remember. It takes them right back to those high school and college days, and it really does capture on the power of nostalgia. So, both the cookies and writing the copy for that was a lot of fun. You'll see I get down to the bottom. Oh yeah, I can do neon splatter paint too, but really it's all about engaging that audience early on. Here's one with some song lyrics, and I actually did a song parody. If you recognize that, you will know what I was going for. I feel like parody lyrics, and yes, I'm a big Weird Al fan. It kind of fits in my whole nerdy thing, but parodies, I think, they're not for everybody, but it can be a way to get people really, really involved as their brains want to start to sing along. In this case, this was a post. I wanted to tell people that I am open to big orders and I like to do them. And this was a much more engaging way to say it than I do big orders. I can bake a lot, buy my stuff. So just having a little bit of fun with it there and a different creative way to do it. Puns can do the trick too. You will see this picture is nothing special, but hopefully the copy pulls you in. It's a whole series of hot dog and barbecue puns. It's also an example of capitalizing on one of those little holidays. It was National Hot Dog Day. And I really didn't have a whole lot to post about. I only had this one old picture. This is one of the very first cookies I did, and it's a terrible photo. So the copy really, really carried this one. It ended up being a ton of engagement. So, and shortly afterward, I got several orders for barbecue theme and hot dog theme cookies. So it absolutely did the trick. Puns work. People like them. And again, that may be different for your audience. And if it's not your vibe, don't do it. But it is a fun thing. Here's another example of picking up on pop culture cues. You've probably seen there are a lot of us who are putting our own spin on the Cookie Monster cookies. So I went ahead and said, all right, this is going to be, Cookie Monster copy and Sesame Street references in this one. So I'm guessing more than a few of you remember the C is for Cookie song, and just opening with that line. If I could get my audience's attention, get them humming along, singing it in their head, that got them interested in the post. Whether it's fond memories of your own childhood or their kids' childhood, it probably taps into a feeling and an experience that people want to share with that next generation. And then here's another parody I did for Christmas last year. This was a take on The Night Before Christmas, the poem. And I really wanted to showcase the value of rhyming and to really evoke a feeling. Our brains love the pattern of something familiar. And rather than just, hey, I put together a really cute Night Before Christmas set, and you get a cocoa bomb, and you get 2 different kinds of cookies and a keepsake board to put it on. That's great. But what the rhyme does, it not only gets people interested and into that story, but it shares the product benefits and it explains a little bit more about them. The nitty gritty, the price, the details, that's all at the bottom. It's there if people need it, but really the idea was to evoke the feeling and paint the picture of this cozy, fun evening that your family could have if you only had this cookie set. Here's one of the very, very few examples I have of keeping it short. This is the entire post, the entire copy. I share it, 1, because it's short, 2, because it really harnesses the power of alliteration. Sweet, simple, sunny, summer, Saturday. Half the words in that sentence start with that same sound. I really like this one because usually my copy is very long. My cookies are colorful and elaborate, and I think this gets a lot of attention because it is such a departure. The cookies are simple. The copy is simple. It performed great. It was a nice change of pace for my audience, and it kind of woke them up, I think, a little bit too, because it was something unexpected for me. So don't be afraid to try something different once in a while. As long as it's still consistent with your overall tone and business, mix it up and see what happens. And it can be a nice way to sort of inject life into your newsfeed. Finally, here's one of those friendly debates, those quote unquote controversial topics. It's designed to stoke some conversations and generate some comments. This post performed really, really well for me because coconut is a very polarizing flavor, I've found. So I invited people to share their opinions, and it performed really, really well for me. It 100% had to be the copy because, let's be very honest, that picture sucks. Um, Nobody mentioned the picture or the cookies, but they were drawn in to get in on that debate. Here's another example. If you're of a certain age, you probably remember the Mounds and Almond Joy commercials, and the copy is a play on that too. So now you've seen some examples. Let's talk about grammar, punctuation, and editing. Like this sign shows, it does matter. Big difference between no more cookies and no more cookies. Commas and grammar, punctuation, editing, it does matter. After you've come up with your idea, you started putting some thoughts together, it's time to make it perfect and get out that proverbial red pen, that proverbial editing. It's important to use appropriate grammar, punctuation, and spelling, but appropriate for your audience. There is no one right way. You do not have to do something that your fourth grade English teacher would approve of. Speak the language of your audience, literally. If you're a Gen Zer baking cookies and your audience is boomers, their language is going to be different than yours. They're not going to know what yeet is. And as a Gen Xer, I'm not entirely sure I'm using it correctly either. But it's not just age, it can be regional factors, many other things. Try as best you can as to write in the language of your ideal customer. When it comes to checking your grammar, there's a tool out there called Grammarly. It's a plugin. It is a wonderful resource and tool to install if you're not super confident in your grammar and your editing. The basic version is free, although paid plans are also available. If you don't want to go that route, write your copy in a program like Microsoft Word that has a grammar and spell checker in it. And then once you run it through, you can just copy and paste your copy back into Facebook or Instagram if that gives you another level of comfort. Another thing, you can ask someone to proofread for you. If you find the right person, English teachers, writers, anyone else who loves words, people like us really love to help you, and we will be so happy you asked because we cannot resist an opportunity like this. So if you have someone in your life who loves to write, likes to edit, let them look over your copy if you have the time. They will probably be really, really excited to do that for you. And then my last tip here, once you have written your copy, if you have the time, let it sit even 5 or 10 minutes. That's all it takes sometimes. Let it sit and then read it again before you post. Another tip, read it aloud. If you can, have someone else read it. All of these things will help you discover, oh wait, that doesn't quite sound right, or oh, I missed that word there. It's easier to have someone else find some of those missed words. Our brains like to fill in what we think we've already written, but sometimes waiting even 5 and 10 minutes will clear your thought process enough that you won't recognize it. So that can be really, really helpful too in making sure that what you intended to write and the tone that you intended is actually hitting correctly. So those are all some simple ways just to, you don't want to lose credibility by having a ton of errors in your copy. You want it to be legible and clear enough that people know what you're saying. Again, this is not something that, a stickler English teacher is going to grade you on, but even just a little bit of attention to those things does matter. Hopefully by now we're feeling a little bit more confident and inspired to keep working on writing some stronger copy. So what is the best way to become a writer? like anything else, it's practice, practice, and more practice. That's the best way you can get better at writing is to write. Practice matters. The other big factor, read a lot. Read all kinds of things. See when something interests you and resonates you. Think about what it is about it that you like. And study others. Study marketing copy from brands you like or brands you think your followers would like. This would include things like emails, print ads, headlines, their social media posts. Pay attention to what tone they strike. Are they using certain language? What of their customers' needs are they trying to fill? What story are they trying to tell? How do they go about it? How do they craft that message that resonates with their customers? Just being aware of how deliberate a lot of this writing is will help you think through it a little more and make some more effective choices. At the end of the day, writing does not need to be scary. Think of it as an opportunity to write a story where your customers and your brand come together. Be fun, be creative, be funny, be genuine, and it's going to have a great happily ever after ending. Remember, if you're watching the replay, please type replay, and that'll help identify any questions that come in later. Thank you so much for joining me today. I really appreciate it. I hope this was helpful to you, and I appreciate the opportunity to share some tips with you. Again, please leave any comments and questions, and I will do my best to answer them for you. Thanks again.